So good morning and welcome everybody to this session about the Senior Leader Apprenticeship given by the Department of Executive Education. We're part of the Alliance Manchester Business School, which in turn is part of the University of Manchester that you can see on the front there. It's fantastic that so many people registered, a great mixture of people that we've known previously and completely new individuals, but also some learning and development and training experts. And the great thing is you represent such a wide variety of sectors, and that's typical of the people we get on the programme. There's always a great mix of sectors in the room. So I'm Jill Ingham, and I have the great job as Client Relations Manager of speaking to people like yourselves on a daily basis, one-to-ones with people who are thinking about applying, and also speaking to commissioners who are looking to train up their managers into senior leadership positions for succession planning, etc. And I just want to share with you one thing, just one thing. I've learned many things in my 8 years here at the business school, and it's actually from the programme itself. The second unit is all about market-led strategy, and I've been able to use this in my capacity as a trustee of a community centre, looking at the community, what do we want to do with the building, how to attract people, what events, how to bid for funding, and all of those things I found very useful from that unit. So what that means is that what you learn on this programme is very useful for a huge variety of job roles, but also external roles as well. So I'm now going to hand over to my colleague Stuart, who will tell us a bit about himself.
Okay, thanks, Jill, and good morning, everyone. So my name's Stuart Wells. I'm Executive Director of Client Relations in Executive Education at the Business School, and I've worked with Jill for the past 4 years on apprenticeship programmes. So welcome to today's webinar. In terms of postgraduate study, I think there's one lesson that I'd like to share. So I undertook a programme quite a few years ago now, and the first module we did was information systems, which I'll be honest with you, I really struggled with at the time. I couldn't quite see the relevance of what it meant to myself in the role I was in. And then several years later, I was asked to set up a subsidiary company for another university, and within that role I was responsible for overseeing the implementation of a number of CRM, finance and banking systems. And what I learned from that is, without the education that I developed from the postgraduate program that I went on, there's absolutely no chance that I would be able to undertake in that role and being successful in it. So the lesson that I learned, and the lesson that we'd say for postgraduate program, is this program is not about who you are today and your role today. It's designed to be able to give you the knowledge and skills to step up into a more senior role. And what we're going to do today, we're going to take you through the program, and we're going to share really our journey on apprenticeships so far. So I'll hand back to Jill, who'll tell you a bit more about the business school and the program itself.
Thank you very much, Stuart. So just before that, just a bit of context for you. I'm sure you're aware of a lot of this, that, you know, we're obviously based in Manchester, the home of the Industrial Revolution, and also a great seat of innovative thinking. On the left, you can see some of the amazing discoveries that have happened here, and on the right, some of our illustrious alumni. What this means for you is that as a business school, we're always trying to be innovative and pioneer things and try new things. And our slogan on the next slide is original thinking applied. And why have we got this slogan? There it is. What does this mean? Well, it means a lot packed into this. So we're one of only the first two business schools that were started in the UK, very long history there. And we have global reach. We've got branches of the business school and the university across different continents, working with customized clients, learning from them and feeding that back into the programs that we design. So we don't operate in isolation. We can also draw from the whole university, from the academics in Faculty of Engineering and Computing and wherever to teach on the programs. We're one of only 1% of business schools in the world that has triple accreditation. But what does all this mean for you? Well, what it means is that you're guaranteed impact and change and improvement for yourself and in your role, because all the teaching and research on the programme is for you to take on board and apply to the role you're in at the moment and then roles in the future. So I'm now going to hand back to Stuart to explain what exactly is a senior leader apprenticeship and how is it funded.
Okay, thanks, Jill. So apprenticeships changed about 4 years ago when the government decided that they wanted to have standards or national standards for a range of roles in every sector right across England. So apprenticeships go from level 2 right up to level 7, and what they wanted to do is they wanted them to be employer-led. So they developed something called trailblazer groups. So a trailblazer group is a group of employers, so small, medium, large size employers, both private and public sector. You've got in this case universities and professional bodies such as the Institute of Leadership and Management and the Chartered Management Institute. And the idea was that the trailblazer groups would come together to define a range of knowledge, skills and behaviours that should be demonstrated if you are a senior leader, which is quite difficult to do when you think about it if you are covering all sectors and all organisations. So it takes quite a while. It took about a year in this case for the development of the new senior leader apprenticeship standard. But the benefit for you as learners is that when you go through the programme, you'll be having to evidence that you are able to show these knowledge, skills and behaviours of a senior leader, so that when you come out of the programme, you can say that you have been able to demonstrate that you have shown and you've met the national standard for a senior leader, which didn't exist before. Actually, there wasn't a benchmark. All universities offered postgraduate programs, but there wasn't a consistent standard. So that's a real benefit of going through the program. And the program itself is an apprenticeship program. The postgraduate diploma makes up one component of this, but also you will receive a status from the Institute of Leadership and Management. So almost it's three programs in one when you go through this. The program itself, the postgraduate diploma element is 24 months. And then you will go through to endpoint assessment, which is undertaken by the Institute of Leadership and Management. And you have up to 5 months to complete this part. It really depends on yourself and how long you want to take on that. So in terms of the funding, so this was a big change in terms of apprenticeships. So the program itself costs £14,000. That is the national funding cap. If you're both a levy payer and a non-levy payer. We do offer the option to top up to an MSc, which is a component that's taken after the apprenticeship program has been completed. That would cost an additional £4,000. Unfortunately, that's no longer payable out of levy funds. So the employer would need to fund this, or the change has been actually that the learner can pay the top up. Previously, that wasn't allowed in apprenticeships. And we don't ask for commitment up front to the MSc. Normally, we'd speak to you around about halfway through. So just after module 6, we'd ask whether it's something that you'd like to undertake. So if you are a levy payer, so if you have an annual payroll bill of over £3 million, then The program will be funded out of that pot if you have funds in the pot. If you are a non-levy payer, so you are an SME that doesn't have that payroll bill, then you can get funding for this, and you'd pay only 5%. So it equates to £700 for the senior leader apprenticeship program, which I'm sure you'll agree is fantastic value. Okay, so that's just giving you a bit of an overview of what the program is, how it's broken down, and the funding. What I'd like to do now is I'd like to hand back to Jill, and she's going to talk you through really the program architecture and the detail of the program.
Great, thank you very much, Stuart. So with that, we are now going to enter into the nitty-gritty of the program, and what's the size and shape of it, and what's in it. So the first thing to say is to state that the aim essentially is to address the knowledge, skills and behaviours of a senior leader apprenticeship as deemed to be fitting, and what we want to see in any senior leader, and as agreed by the Trailblazer group that Stuart mentioned. And as you are doing that and showing evidence of how you're taking on these knowledge, skills and behaviours in your job role, you will gain, as you go along, the qualification Postgraduate Diploma in Management Practice at level 7. So you'll be looking for ways to evidence your learning, as we've said, and that will go into your portfolio, which will be yours to keep forever beyond the programme. So what's the shape of it? Well, if you focus on the purple and lilac blocks, so there are 8 units of 3 months. It's a nice regular pattern, 3 months per unit, and you're just focusing on that one unit at a time. It's a mix. It's what we call a blended program, so it's online and face-to-face. Online 1-hour tutorials, reading, thinking, and coming in for a workshop every 3 months of 2.5 days in a block. Now, you might be wondering how we handled this during the pandemic when there was lockdown. Well, we simply changed the face-to-face workshops to online. We managed to run the workshops online, and it worked really well. So it's fantastic. You needn't be worried, if there's a, God forbid, another variant comes our way, we can carry on with this program. So if you look at the turquoise box at top left, online introduction. So the program will start towards the end of October this year, and you'll get a login to the virtual learning environment, which we call Blackboard. And there'll be a nice introductory talk by the program director, and you'll be welcomed, and you can have an exploration of Blackboard and click on and see what's there and what resources there are, and get familiar with it. And then you come in person to the program immersion day on the 1st of November. And that's a 9 to 5 working day, midweek, here in the business school in our teaching centre. What happens? Well, the first thing that happens is you look around the room and you meet all the other learners in your cohort, as we call it. We don't call you apprentice or student, the term is learner. And you get to know the other people from every sector you can imagine. In the morning of the immersion day, we go through the program, all the nuts and bolts of it, because you can see there's a lot of detail. We answer your questions and get rid of all your worries. The thing that most people are concerned about is, I hear this quite a lot, am I going to be academic enough for you, to come to a Russell Group University's business school? Will I be academic enough? So we address this head on in the afternoon, and we explain to you what we mean by critical reflection, how to adopt that critical stance, and to be thinking, owning the material and thinking, what can I use that's going to be useful in my current job role to address the challenges and the opportunities? What improvements can I recommend? So everything you're learning, you are applying to your current job. You're not doing case studies about Amazon and Starbucks and these sort of things. It's directly applicable. There aren't any exams, just to say that up front. It's continuous coursework throughout in a variety of formats as decided by the person running each unit. We'll say a bit more about that later. The next thing that happens is bottom left, the Hogan psychometric assessment. Now, it might sound a bit daunting, but it absolutely isn't. It's a 45-minute questionnaire online that all the learners complete. We think it's the best tool that there is for analysing where a person is right now in their professional life. What are you the go-to person for? What do people value in you? And then what happens to you under stress? What behaviours might you exhibit under stress that can be reduced? Not claiming to make everybody perfect, but there are things we can put in place. So the Hogan is looking at all of that. And it will be used, the results will go through to the practice-based tutor that you'll have to work a lot, to help you throughout the whole 2 years. And that will help to create, to identify areas, goals for you to work on for your personal development. Just going to make sure I'm not leaving anything out. And then to say a word about the actual units, because you've just got the titles there. 3 months on each, starting with leadership, because everything starts with yourselves. We learn on this unit how to think about how we are managing, because most of us just do the job, we do the work, but we don't often sort of take time to reflect on how we're doing it. How am I managing? What's it like to work for me? These are the things we look at. Examples of great leadership, examples of where leadership isn't so great, and you'll all have good examples to bring to the table from that. And hopefully you'll have the takeaway will be some changes that you might like to make to improve. Unit 2, market-led strategy. This is where we look not at yourselves, but at the organisation. How does your organisation sit within its sector? What factors influence your organisation? Obviously, competitors and trends. It could be legislation. It could be geopolitics, supply chains, COVID, all of those external factors. We take a look at that. And then conversely, what effect does your organisation have externally on your suppliers, your customers, your sector? And then how to create marketing strategy with your products and services. So all of that is unpicked in that unit. Unit 3 is the finance unit, because no senior leader can work without addressing budgeting and income and revenue and profit and loss. So that's what that covers. But just to say, we're not trying to make you into an accountant. We're not trying to make you into an entrepreneur in Unit 4. We're trying to get you to embrace, new ideas. There may be a person in your team. If you're not the ideas person necessarily, there might be somebody with bright ideas in your team, and you might like to sort of harness that creativity. Unit 5, again, very useful. Commercial management includes things like procurement, contracts, negotiation, and supply chain, all essential elements for a senior leader to understand and practice. Unit 6, another great unit, managing projects. So in general, the ones you're doing now and also the ones in the future. So it's the methodology for great project management, really. Unit 7 is relatively new. I think we introduced it a year or two ago. It's got a very fancy title, but it basically means big data and digital elements, because again, we're not trying to make you into data analysts, but to have the confidence to go and talk to that person or that department in your organisation that might be able to help and suggest how you could use data in your team, or even market data that's available externally. And then finally, Unit 8 is different to the other 7. There aren't sort of lectures and workshops with new material. It's more a question of looking back over the 7 units. Have I evidenced my learning, the knowledge, skills and behaviours? Am I putting the best examples I can into my portfolio? Where was I when I started? What's my narrative where I am now? And all of this is preparing you for the endpoint assessment onto that at the end of the 2 years of teaching and impact. So if you look at the vertical green stripe now, called strategic business proposal. So you've gone through all the units, you've done the assignments, you've got your portfolio as beautiful as you can for the assessor. And for the next 12 weeks, at the end of the Unit 8, you will work with your work-based mentor, internal mentor in your organisation, on a challenge that you've got. Now, we don't know what that is now because it's 2 years hence, but something that needs addressing, and you'll be the person to do it because you've got all these wonderful tools that you've gathered across the units. And you decide what the project is, and excuse me, and work on that and write 4,000 words as a recommendation as to how to tackle that problem or that opportunity it could be. And that proposal, when it's ready, and when you're ready, as agreed by your mentor and our tutor, you're ready for the endpoint assessment. And then I'll come on to that in a minute, actually, because just want to tell you what a typical unit looks like. Go on to the next slide. Because so this is a helpful slide. So it's an example of the timeline of any one of the units. Please ignore the dates, it's just fictitious. So each unit starts with a 1-hour online tutorial during the working day, and you'll get all the dates for your program that starts end of October. You'll get all the dates of the workshops and the tutorials at the beginning, hopefully a bit before or even before that, as soon as we can. And our advice is to get them into your calendar from the word go, because frankly, we've had a couple of people who missed certain tutorials. So you will get all the dates, put them all in your calendars as if it's a 1-hour work meeting or webinar. What happens on the online tutorial? You will probably be sent what we call pre-work, some articles to read about leadership or innovation, whatever, to open up your minds and get you thinking before you come onto the tutorial. There may be some questions to answer to relate to your job role. Then you come onto the tutorial during the working day, and there's probably a short talk by the person running the unit, and then you have a discussion. Everybody can contribute and comment on their thoughts on the topic. If you miss a tutorial due to illness or for whatever reason, it doesn't disappear. You can access it later or again. The only thing being you can't contribute, obviously. 2 weeks later, another one, and then another one 2 weeks after that. Then the yellow stripe, you come in for the 2.5-day workshop block. Usually, during the working week, 9 till 5. What happens in the workshops? A lot of different activities, a lot of group work. You're literally pulling apart all the sort of subtopics relating to the unit, and bringing in challenges that you've got to the table, getting help with them from the other people on the programme and their suggestions, and the lecturers as well. One benefit, of course, of being in the room is the water cooler moment that I'm sure you all know about. And then following that, another tutorial or a sort of rounding off session before you then have a couple of weeks to work on and submit. It could be what we call a paper, a reflective practice paper, or some other written or practical assignment as deemed by the person running the unit, but no exam as such. Okay, so I'm now just going to summarise the whole programme, the whole experience, before we go on to the help that's available. So these blocks show the whole 2.5-year trajectory, starting with onboarding and immersion, then the 24 months of teaching and impact, then the strategic business proposal that you're working on. You're just working on that for 3 months using all the skills that you've learned. And then when you're ready, go through to endpoint assessment. What actually happens at this? You will give a 15-minute presentation about the proposal that you've written, and then there's about a 1-hour discussion with the assessor. And that person will be from the Institute of Leadership and Management, and it's just with that person, it's not with the other learners. And it should be an enjoyable experience, and your opportunity to show off the narrative of where you were when you came, why did you want to do the programme, how it's helped, how you've developed, and how you've now got under your belt the knowledge, skills and behaviours for senior leadership. Now, there's just one extra thing to comment on. There will be an option to add on another element called the MSc, as opposed to the PG Dip that you'll have got. And this will involve undertaking another project called Individual Impact Project over 6 months, working with our academics. Now, that part isn't funded, as I think Stuart mentioned. It does require a £4,000 fee from yourself or your employer, but we don't talk to you about that. You don't need to think about that at the moment. You need to be getting 50% in the assignments. It's something beyond what's needed to think about if and when you apply. So I've now talked about the actual programme, and Stuart will explain to you the amazing support.
Okay, thanks, Jill. So in terms of the support on the programme, there's 2 key roles with apprenticeships that we don't have on our usual postgraduate programmes, and these are the practice-based tutor and the work-based mentor. So every learner who goes through the programme will be allocated a practice-based tutor, and their role really is to provide support for learners throughout the apprenticeship. So they will meet with you at the beginning of the programme. They will meet with you to discuss the Hogan psychometric and give you some feedback on that. And then in terms of helping you to develop that programme, so looking at goals throughout the programme and what you're looking to achieve. They will also meet with you formally on a quarterly basis, really to make sure that you're on track, you're achieving your goals, your targets, your off-the-job learning, which I'll come on to shortly, but also that you're getting the chance to apply the learning and skills and knowledge that you develop in the programme back into the workplace. So in terms of that meeting, it is an organisational meeting. So it's a tripartite meeting between the practice-based tutor, the work-based mentor and the learner. So the work-based mentor is an absolutely key role within apprenticeships. So work-based mentor should be someone in your organisation. So it could be your line manager, or it could be another professional senior professional that you work with. So somebody, for instance, that you work with on a project, but the key is that they are familiar with your work. The key is that they must enable you to make change in the organization, because as Jill mentioned, the kind of assignments we do are really aimed to help you make recommendations to drive improvements in your organization. So they've got to enable you to do that. They also need to attend those quarterly review meetings and also support you on a regular basis. And one of the key things they need to do is support you on that off-the-job learning. So the off-the-job learning is one of the questions we get asked more about than anything else really on apprenticeships. I think it's important to stress that 20% of a learner's work time, so time that you are contracted to undertake by your employer, must be spent in off-the-job training and new development. And it's spent in a number of ways. So Jill mentioned that you'll need to undertake work on course units before coming to the workshops and tutorials. So you'll be spending time on the online workbooks and completing those. You'll also be spending time in the workshops and tutorials, so the 2.5-a-day workshops and the 1-hour tutorials. So again, that can be logged. And then also workplace development. So I think it's important to add here that workplace development is activities that aren't part of your normal day-to-day job. The idea here is that they are very much developmental. They are stretched activities that relate to that knowledge, skills, and behaviours that you've got to demonstrate to show that you meet the senior leader apprenticeship standards. So I've reflected on, okay, well, what have I done personally in the last month around knowledge, skills, and behaviours if I was on the programme? So I've developed a resourcing plan for part of our business here at AMBS, both in terms of staffing and budget, and planned it out in terms of various levels of targets, and then built that into the main budget for the executive education division. So that is something that I've personally not done before. So for me, it's something that was very much developmental, very much strategic, and taking decisions on the resourcing. I've also done the same in terms of reviewing where we are on another side of the business in terms of all our activity, where we've been successful, where we've not, where we can make recommendations, using data to drive this. So using the data that we have available to us. So again, taking a strategic view on it. I've attended the Behavioural Insights webinar. So looking at the technique of behavioural insights. To be honest, I'd not really heard of it before. So I thought it was useful to go along to see actually how these techniques are used, which was really insightful. And I'm teaching a session on Friday on executive education, sales and marketing to a group of people. Never done the session before. So again, had to look and reflect and think, okay, what can I teach these people? What's useful? How can I share knowledge? So developed a session around that, which actually can be shared, and I will be sharing in terms of internal training for other departments in the university. So these are all areas that are very much developmental for me, not day-to-day traditional standard business, but important in terms of my role as I develop further as a senior leader. So hopefully that will give you some kind of insight into the type of activities that you need to undertake. You'd also need to record all these activities in an online system as you go along, so that we can make sure that you are maintaining that off-the-job learning. It's important that also you try and maintain consistency as you go along, so that you are recording as you're attending those workshops and tutorials and you're doing the work, so that we know that you are getting that all-important 20% off the job training time. So in terms of the entry requirements for the programme, the first one to point out is that the ESFA ask for GCSE English Language and Maths. This isn't actually a formal University of Manchester requirement as such, but it is required by the government, and those passes have got to be at grade A to C. We also need you to show evidence of those passes. So again, a big challenge we found is that finding those all-important GCSE certificates can be quite tricky. In fact, actually, Jill took a very excited call one Sunday tea time as a lady was round her nan's for Sunday dinner, and had actually located them in her loft. So she was that excited. So my advice is, if you're looking to apply, please start gathering that evidence as soon as you can. If you've undertaken your qualifications outside of the UK, then what we'd ask for is you submit your certificates from where you've taken those qualifications. So, for instance, we've had people on the course who've studied in Albania, and then our admissions team will compare those qualifications. So if they are level in terms of the GCSE, if they're comparative, then we can be accepted. You can be accepted onto the program. Now, if you don't have grade A to C in GCSE maths, we asked you to complete what's called a functional skills course. We don't ask you to do that before you come on the program. Really, it's up to you when you complete it, but it has to be completed without fail by the gateway stage that Jill mentioned at the program. That again is it's a level 2 course, so it's, for me, with people who are going through it, for me, it's nothing to worry about because you're going to be studying at level 7. So a level 2 course is not something to be concerned about, and you will have full tuition on that course, and it's included as part of the course fee. Now, in terms of the admissions criteria, we've got 2 criteria. So the first is that if you've got 3 years line management experience and you've got a good degree, so we classify that as a minimum as a 2-1, the University of Manchester classifies that, or a equivalent academic or professional qualification, which if you have what you see as the equivalent qualification, then we will consider this, and the admissions team will review it. Then you come on through admissions criteria 1. You will also have to have an interview with the program director before coming on the program, and that is actually for both admissions criteria 1 and 2. Admissions criteria 2 is what we call our non-standard entry route, but it's a really important route because about 30% of people who come on the program have come through this route, and that's for people who've got significant management experience, so 5 years plus experience, but have not got the 2-1 degree or not been to university. What we ask is that you demonstrate a substantial record of achievement in business or leadership or in organizational development. And the way you do this is you would submit a CV so we can see how you've developed. On that CV also, it's important that you state that your qualifications that you've taken in terms of continuous professional development, because it gives us an understanding of what you've been through. I think at this point, it's important to state that if you have a level 7 qualification in business and management, then unfortunately we can't accept you onto the program. Also, I'm afraid that if you are a head of an organization, so for instance, you are a chief executive, you're a managing director, then you're not eligible for the program. The reason being now, this is all apprentices really must be able to have a mentor that would be able, who sits at a more senior level, to assist them throughout the program. So they also must be able to learn in an upwards direction. So it's critical. So they are the 2 real reasons why you couldn't come on the program. So in terms of the application process, so you can find out more about the program at our website, which is listed here. You can also contact Jill for extra information. Jill is happy to speak to anyone and answer any questions that people have about the program. And there's Jill's details. She's happy to have a Teams call with everyone who's interested in the program. Review those admissions requirements. And we also provide a checklist that you need to go through before applying. The next intake takes place, the program immersion day, which Jill mentioned, will take place early November, so November the 1st. The actual program itself normally starts online about a week before, so the end of October. Please speak with your line manager. Please, we need to get approval from your line manager or work-based mentor before applying for the program. Please also let us know that you're planning to apply, because what we will do is we will send you an invitation to the AppTemp system. So the AppTemp system is our university application system. So on that, you will need to submit those all important certificates. So that's why it's important to gather them as soon as you can, and also references as well as a number of key documentation, which you will provide full details on. The beauty of this system is that you don't need to apply all in one go. You can save as you're going along. So it tends to take, I'll be honest, about 2 hours to undertake this process. But as I say, you can save it going along, but it's actually worthwhile that you get everything in terms of your documentation ready before you start the process. We also need to agree apprenticeship contracts with your employer. We have apprenticeship contracts with a lot of employers, I'm pleased to say, but if we haven't, then our team will need to agree that in advance of you coming on the program. The applications we will open on the 1st of March, and what we would say is early applications are recommended. So we're not, in terms of the admissions team, we're accepting applications as we're going along and reviewing them. So it's not like we're waiting for a big tranche of applications to come in. So our advice is that early applications is very much recommended for this program. Once the program's full, it is very much full. We're not going to be putting on other cohorts. So we'll be judging applications as and when they come in. And on the Aptem system, there's a timestamp so we can see when they've been submitted. So you'll then go on to have that interview with the program director once we've received the application, and once we've signed those contracts off and the program directors approved you at that stage, you will be accepted onto the senior leader apprenticeship program. So this whole process takes, I'll be honest, about 2 months. So don't panic if you think you've not heard from the university. It's very much the case that we are processing your application, and it does take time for us to go through this. Okay, so that's the application process and admissions. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to hand back to Jill, who'll summarize today's session.
Thank you, Stuart. So we're nearly done, folks. Before we go to your wonderful questions, just to summarise what we've said quickly. So unprecedented support. You don't often get so much contact with a tutor at the university when you're on a master's degree. The Hogan psychometric is a fantastic tool. You'll get great resources and help with your study skills and our library and things. We've got 8 cohorts up and running and something like 230 learners on our senior leader apprenticeship. So we know it works. You'll be taught by world-class lecturers in fantastic facilities, and of course benefit from networking and meeting people similar to yourselves in other sectors. And why would you do it? Well, it's to broaden yourself out from your niche area of expertise, embrace what you'd expect have to know in terms of management and leadership in organisations. You will become more confident and participate better in senior management meetings, and ultimately play a bigger part in the strategic direction of your organisation. And of course, the benefits to HR leaders and learning and development leaders is the employees will bring fresh ideas, they'll be more motivated and hopefully be retained in your organisation. But there is a final word, a little caveat to all this wonderful benefits, is that clearly it is a serious commitment over 2.5 years. It does require consistent engagement. So, apart from your job role, please think carefully about your personal and domestic situation. When something happens, as things do to people, they can have what we call a break in learning for a 3-month block. So we do realise that, of course, but yeah, so it is a serious undertaking, having said all that. So that's the end of the presentation. We're on just after 1:45. So we're going to answer your questions now. And I'm going to start with Rabina, who was first up. And she wants us to talk about the course fee, but she's also mentioned that she's a sole trader. So unfortunately, this is a problem with apprenticeships. I think Stuart said you're not able to apply if you are at the very head of your organisation, because it's felt that you can't learn in an upward direction. But similarly, if you're a sole trader, you haven't got enough context within which to evidence your learning in the organisation. There aren't enough departments. Plus, you'll be doing most of the work, if not all of it. Course fee. The programme is fully funded up to the postgraduate diploma to nearly the end, at £14,000 per place, as Stuart mentioned. It's just the extra 6 months MSc qualification that requires the £4,000 top up by the learner or the employer. I'm just going to take Joel's question next on what do we mean by reflexive leadership. Excellent question, and one that Stuart and I have wondered a little bit about ourselves. So we did ask our academic colleagues. It's nothing to be frightened of. It's thinking. It's looking at yourself and how you operate, trying to sort of be objective about yourself and how you go about things and what effect you might be having on the people that work with you and for you. So it's nothing it's nothing too involved beyond that. Do you have anything to add to that, Stuart?
Yeah, so Jill, just to add to that, so it's not just about an individual leadership, it's also about organizational leadership as well. So looking at how do you lead in an organization, how do you understand the culture of an organization, how do you understand power in an organization and the resistance that you may have, and influencing stakeholders, and it's also looking at ethical leadership, which I think it's always been really important, but it's never been so important. So actually, how do you operate ethically? How do you develop as an ethical but also an authentic leader as well?
Thank you, Stuart. That's very useful to remind myself of as well. Megan has a question. Can we consider someone if they haven't got the 3 years management experience? So I assume 3 years only applies if you've got the 2-1 first degree. And you wouldn't believe, other people have asked us this, where they really want to do the programme, but they haven't actually got the 3 years. Firstly, do get in touch personally, and we need to look at your whole background ideally. But off the top of my head, I'd say you probably need to wait another year until you've got that 3 years, because we do run the programme twice a year. So we've got the October intake, and then in probably April 2023, and then again in the autumn. So it doesn't mean you won't get to do it. It just means you might need to wait for a bit more experience and time under your belt. And I think Megan also has a question about how many days are face-to-face. So it's 8 times the 2.5 day block, 17 days plus the immersion day. So 18 days, if I'm right, my maths is right, over the 2 years. Yeah, 2.5 days every 3 months. So that is the biggest time you'll be out of your organisation, focusing on the workshop. But of course, you'll be working on the about the organisation anyway. So, okay, so that was Megan's question. What else have we got? Stuart, would you like to pick up one?
Yeah, I can do. So, in terms of Joel, I've got Joel's question around how many learners are in each cohort. So it's a good question, Joel. So normally we'd say a minimum of 20 learners would be in a cohort, maximum 30 learners, and the cohorts would take place in our executive education centre, which has been built about 3 years ago at the university. The reason, so we don't go for huge cohorts on this, because the idea is that you'll develop a close network with the people on the program. So we don't want 60 plus people on it. It's very much designed so that there's the opportunity for you to have discussion within those workshops, and for you to develop those close relationships with people.
Thanks, Stuart. And Joel's got another brilliant question. Are there any follow-on benefits for the alumni? You know, once you're on the program, or once you've done it, what's going to be your ongoing relationship with the business school? Absolutely. You immediately join an executive education network. We don't call you alumni. That's for, you know, the university's kind of normal students, undergrads, if you like, become alumni of whatever. But for executive education, you become part of the network. You'll be invited to fantastic talks in the business school. There's one this week, actually, on Thursday, that Stuart and I will attend face to face. You can also attend remotely, and it's all about how businesses can get better at being sustainable business practice in all its shapes and forms. And we'll hear from our top expert professor who researches into sustainable business. So that will be really interesting. So you get those, and you'll get invited to events and meet up with the people you studied with. And then also, yes, good question about discounts on short courses. Funny enough, we're actually looking at this now. Yes, we do have much shorter courses. We have digital and data type courses, you know, big data that are online entirely. And we also have shorter management courses for 1 week, or just taking one element out of it. So just one particular unit, with or without coaching. So yes, indeed, and yes, we're looking at discount. And then, so just to add to
that, Jill. So it would be a 10% discount that you get on all future courses within executive education.
Gary has got a question. Are the workshops held in Manchester? Yes, the 2.5 days. If you come on the course, the intake in October, which is what we call a multi-organisational cohort, it means people from lots of different sectors. So it might be one person from a company X, 2 people from authority Y, and you know, not usually more than 2 or 3, to be honest. There can be, but not usually from an organisation. However, if you are a commissioner, an L&D expert, we also have another way of running this programme called a single organisation cohort, and we've got those running. We've had them running for 2 or 3 years for various NHS trusts and rail organisation, and with those, they don't necessarily have to have the workshop in Manchester. It can be on their premises. So we teach the programme up in the northeast, for example, for an NHS trust. That was Gary's question. Oh, Daniel wants to know, can we get the slides? Yes, we'll be sending the slides, and we'll also have the recording for anybody who, I'm keeping a list of people who want the recording as well, either for colleagues or if they didn't get to hear all of it. What time?
So Jenny's got a question next.
Yeah.
So if the learner pays the 4,000 fee, is it up front, or can it be through a student loan or similar? So fortunately at the moment it's not through a student loan, but we can take 2 payments for the fee if you personally want to top up on that MSc.
Brilliant.
And as we said, you wouldn't have to pay it at the beginning of the program. So you wouldn't have to pay it until 18 months in.
Thanks, Stuart. I'm just going quickly to Abby's question. Thank you very much for your flattering comment. And then your question is, what about the eligibility? If someone's already got a master's degree in another area? We love to hear that. It's absolutely fine to have a master's in a different area. You can have a master's in archaeology, ancient history, whatever you like. But as long as you haven't already got a master's level in business, management, or leadership, that's the only time. You can have a first degree in it, a BSc, BA, but you can't have a master's in business sort of area. Gary's next question: if we are between jobs but expect to be in another job soon, is that okay? Brilliant question. You must have an employer at the point of application. You know, to apply and get an offer of a place, you must be employed. So it might be a case, if you're in between jobs, Gary, wait till you're employed and then apply, as long as they approve.
I think just to add to that though, Jill, it's a good question, Gary. So we've had people who are changing roles, going into a new role. So when they're negotiating the role with that new employer, this has been built into it. So, you know, I really want to take this program. So kind of A, we get the funding, and B, kind of have the time to be able to study. And also finally, people slightly concerned, what if I leave what if I get started and then I'm made redundant, or I spot a fantastic job opportunity in another organisation and I go for it and I get it? Well, as long as the next employer agrees for you to continue, then that's absolutely fine. These apprenticeships, you know, they deal with that. So I think we're nearly on the hour. Can we see any more questions, Stuart and Joe? No, I think perfect timing. I think we've answered them all from what I can see, Jill.
Yeah, well, right. Well, on that note, we'd like to thank you all for attending, for your fabulous questions, bearing with us with all the detail. Please do get in touch if you'd like a one-to-one Teams call with me to talk about your specific circumstances and background. We'll be sending the slides and the recording. Recording probably will be ready next week. It does take some editing. And thank you very much, and have a great day.
Thanks, everyone, and hopefully we'll see you again soon. Take care.
Bye-bye.